A housekeeper's son saves a billionaire's daughter from hungry dogs. It sounds like something out of a movie, but this story is real. A quiet boy from a poor background risked everything to save someone he barely knew, and what happened next changed his life in ways he never imagined. How did a teenager with no money or connections end up receiving a full scholarship to one of the best universities in the world? What really happened that day? Carlos Medina was 16 years old and lived two different lives. During the week, he stayed in Malibu with his mother, Maria, who worked as a housekeeper for the Rosenthal family. On weekends, he returned to East Los Angeles to stay with his younger siblings and aunt. His life was not easy, but he was used to it. He didn't complain much because he knew his mother worked hard to provide for them. The Rosenthals were very rich. They owned a large house that sat on a hill overlooking the ocean. The house had white marble floors, tall glass windows, and many rooms. There was a pool, a tennis court, and even a small stable with horses. Alan Rosenthal, the father, made his money by starting a software company. He was now a billionaire, and his wife and daughter lived in comfort. Everything in the house was perfect and expensive, and Maria made sure it stayed that way. Carlos didn't feel like he belonged in that world. He was just the housekeeper's son. He didn't wear designer clothes or have expensive gadgets. He didn't eat what they ate or speak the way they did. When he was on the Rosenthal property, he stayed quiet and kept to himself. He usually sat in the small staff area and worked on his school assignments or read science books. Carlos was a smart student. He enjoyed studying and solving math problems. His dream was to go to MIT one day and become an engineer. Carlos often saw Jasmine Rosenthal, the daughter of the family. She was 14 years old and went to a private school. She had her own driver, her own horse, and a room filled with toys, clothes, and electronics. She hardly noticed Carlos. They barely spoke, even though they were close in age. She lived in a different world, one with no money problems, no worries about rent, and no fear of being left behind. Carlos didn't hate her for that. He just knew that they were not the same. Maria always told Carlos to be polite and stay out of the way. She didn't want to risk her job by having Carlos cause trouble or get too close to the Rosenthals. She trusted him. He was a good boy. He studied hard, helped her with chores, and never talked back. She was proud of him and hoped he would have a better future than she did. One Friday afternoon in June, Carlos was sitting outside near the guest house with his laptop. He was writing an essay for a summer science program he wanted to apply to. His mother was still cleaning the house and asked him to wait there for her so they could go home together when she finished. The weather was nice, and Carlos liked the quiet sound of the ocean in the distance. While he typed, he noticed Jasmine walking through the backyard. She had earbuds in and was listening to music. She was wearing white sneakers, leggings, and a hoodie. She looked relaxed and unaware of anything around her. She was heading toward the garden area near the side of the property. Carlos went back to his typing, but something caught his eye. The side gate, which was usually locked, was open. That was strange. The staff always made sure to keep the gate shut because it led to the neighborhood road. Carlos looked around to see if anyone else noticed, but there was no one nearby. The chef had left for the day. The gardener had gone home. His mother was still inside the house. He stood up and squinted toward the gate. Something moved behind the bushes. Then he saw them thugs. 4 large dogs came through the gate. They were dirty, muscular, and looked angry. Their ears were cropped, and they had heavy chains hanging from their collars. These weren't pets. They looked like fighting dogs. Carlos's heart started to beat faster. He looked at Jasmine. She was still dancing and had no idea what was going on. The dogs were heading straight in her direction. They were not barking loudly yet, but their heads were low, and their bodies were tense. Carlos knew this was bad. He didn't stop to think. He ran. Carlos ran as fast as he could toward Jasmine. He didn't yell at first because he didn't want to scare the dogs or make them attack faster. But when he saw how close they were, he shouted her name. Jasmine! Jasmine! Run! She didn't hear him. She still had her earbuds in. She was standing near a small garden, swiping on her phone and smiling at something on the screen. Carlos kept running, waving his arms and yelling louder. Jasmine! Get out of there! Finally, she looked up and pulled one earbud out. At first, she looked confused. She didn't see the dogs yet. Then she turned her head toward the sound of growling. That's when she froze. The dogs were only about 20 feet away from her now. One of them was already picking up speed. The other 3 followed close behind. Their eyes were locked on her. They looked hungry, wild, and ready to attack. Jasmine's face went pale. She dropped her phone and took one step back. Carlos didn't stop. He ran straight toward her and yelled again. Climb the tree! Climb the tree now! There was a large oak tree a few feet from Jasmine. She turned and looked at it, then looked back at the dogs. She finally moved. She sprinted to the tree and grabbed one of the low branches. She struggled for a moment, but somehow pulled herself up just in time. Her foot slipped, and she screamed, but she managed to swing her other leg up. The dogs reached the base of the tree just seconds later. They jumped and barked, trying to reach her feet, but she climbed a little higher and held on tightly. Carlos was now just a few yards away. The dogs noticed him and turned. 2 of them broke off from the group and charged at him. He looked around quickly for something to protect himself. There was a small gardening shed nearby. He ran to it and grabbed the first thing he saw, a long metal rake. The dogs didn't slow down. One lunged at Carlos and he swung the rake hard. The metal hit the dog in the shoulder. It yelped but kept coming. The second dog snapped at his leg and caught his pants. Carlos tried to pull away, but the dog's teeth sank into his calf. He shouted in pain and hit it again with the rake. The pain in his leg was sharp. He could feel blood soaking through his pants. He didn't let go of the rake. He kept swinging, trying to keep the dogs from getting closer. His hands were shaking, and his breathing was heavy, but he didn't stop. Jasmine was still in the tree, crying and yelling for help. Somebody, please, help us. Carlos shouted back, Stay up there. Don't come down. He backed up slowly, trying to keep the dogs in front of him. They circled him, growling and snapping. He couldn't run now. His leg hurt too much. If he fell, he knew it would be over. Suddenly, a voice called out from behind the main house. Carlos, what's going on? It was the groundskeeper, Mr. Joe, an older man who came a few times a week to water the plants and fix things around the yard. He had a shovel in his hand and ran toward Carlos when he saw what was happening. Get back! Joe shouted, swinging the shovel at the nearest dog. One of the dogs jumped at Joe, and he hit it hard. The dog fell back, stunned. Carlos used the chance to step back toward the tree, limping badly. The second dog lunged again, but Joe hit it too. A moment later, another staff worker came from the garage. It was Tina, the laundry assistant. She had a garden hose and turned the water on full blast. She aimed it at the dogs, spraying their faces and bodies. The dogs barked and backed away, shaking their heads. The water didn't hurt them, but it distracted them enough for Joe to push them toward the open gate. Get out of here! Joe shouted. With both the shovel and the water, they managed to drive the dogs back out through the gate. Joe slammed it shut and used a stick to jam the latch. He was breathing hard and sweating, but he didn't let go of the shovel. Carlos dropped the rake and sat down on the grass. His leg was bleeding badly. Jasmine climbed down from the tree and ran to him. Are you okay? Are you okay? She asked over and over. Carlos looked up at her and nodded, but his face was pale. I'm fine. Just need to sit down. Jasmine knelt beside him, her hands shaking. You saved me. You really saved me. Maria came running from the house a minute later. She had heard the shouting and finally realized something was wrong. When she saw Carlos on the ground and blood on his pants, she cried out and rushed to him. My baby! What happened? Carlos leaned back, trying to stay calm. I'm okay, Mom. It's not too bad. Joe called 911, and the ambulance came in 10 minutes. The paramedics cleaned Carlos's wound and wrapped his leg tightly. They said he needed stitches and might have to stay in the hospital for a day or two to prevent infection. Before they took him away, Jasmine stood next to the stretcher. She looked straight at him and said, I won't forget this. Ever. Carlos didn't say much. He just gave a small smile and closed his eyes. The hospital room was quiet, except for the soft beeping of the heart monitor. Carlos lay on the bed, his leg wrapped in thick bandages. The doctor had stitched the bite and given him antibiotics. He said Carlos had been lucky. The bite hadn't hit an artery, but it was deep and needed time to heal. Carlos's mom, Maria, sat beside him, holding his hand. She looked tired and worried, but she also looked proud. She hadn't stopped thanking him since the ambulance ride. You saved her, she kept whispering. You didn't think of yourself. You saved that girl. Carlos nodded, but he didn't feel like a hero. His leg throbbed, and all he could think about was how close everything had been to going wrong. What if he hadn't seen the dogs? What if Jasmine hadn't made it up the tree? What if help hadn't come? Later that day, Jasmine and her parents came to visit. Mr. Rosenthal was a tall man with a serious face. He usually didn't speak much to the staff, but now he stood at the foot of Carlos's bed with his arms crossed. Jasmine stood beside him, looking nervous. Mrs. Rosenthal followed behind, holding a small bag. Carlos, Mr. Rosenthal said, we want to thank you. You saved our daughter's life. That kind of bravery is rare. Carlos didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. Mrs. Rosenthal stepped forward. We brought you something. Just a small gift for now. She opened the bag and pulled out a new tablet. It was the latest model, slim, silver, and expensive. She handed it to Carlos, who looked at it, then at his mother. Maria spoke gently. Say thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Carlos said, holding the tablet. He was grateful but also unsure. It didn't feel like this moment was about gifts. Mr. Rosenthal cleared his throat. We've also spoken to your school principal. We know you're a top student. Once you're better, we'd like to talk more about your future. We may be able to help with that. Carlos didn't ask what that meant. He just nodded again. After they left, Maria sat back down and looked at him closely. Did you hear what he said? He wants to help you. Carlos sighed. I don't want their money. I didn't do it for that. I know, Maria said. But if they offer help, you should take it. You've worked hard your whole life. Maybe this is your chance. Carlos didn't answer. Deep inside, he felt strange. He had saved Jasmine's life, yes. But everything had happened so fast. Now people were calling him a hero, and the Rosenthals were treating him differently. He didn't know if it was real, or if they were just doing it because they felt guilty or embarrassed. The next few days were hard. His leg hurt more than he expected. He had trouble sleeping at night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the dogs running at him. He heard their growls. He felt their teeth again. Even though the doctors said he would recover fully, he felt uneasy. Something had changed, not just in his leg, but in his mind too. After a week, he was released from the hospital and taken back to the Rosenthal estate. They had offered to let him stay in one of the guest rooms so he could recover in comfort. Maria didn't argue. She wanted her son to rest somewhere safe and clean. Jasmine came to visit him almost every day. At first, it was awkward. She didn't know how to act around him. But after a few visits, she relaxed. She brought books, snacks, and once even played a video game with him. she kept saying. I still can't believe what happened. Carlos usually gave short answers. He liked Jasmine, but he didn't know what to say to her. Their lives had been so far apart. Now they were suddenly close because of something scary, and he wasn't sure how to handle it. One evening, Jasmine asked, "Why did you run toward me? Most people would have run away." Carlos looked at her and thought for a second. "Because I saw the dogs. And you didn't. I couldn't just watch and do nothing." Jasmine nodded. "I don't think I would have done the same. I get scared too easily." Carlos didn't say anything. The next day, something happened that made things harder. A video had been taken from one of the security cameras in the backyard. It showed everything: the dogs entering, Carlos shouting, Jasmine climbing the tree, and Carlos getting attacked. The Rosenthals hadn't shared the footage, but somehow it leaked online. By evening, Carlos's name was all over the internet. People were calling him the brave housekeeper's son. News stations were calling the Rosenthals for interviews. Journalists showed up near the gate. Reporters wanted to speak to Carlos. They wanted to know his story, his background, and what he planned to do next. Carlos felt overwhelmed. He wasn't used to cameras, microphones, or reporters asking personal questions. He didn't want fame. He just wanted to heal, go back to school, and work toward his dream. That night, Mr. Rosenthal sat down with him for a talk. "I know this attention is a lot," he said, "but it's not all bad. People want to help you. Some local colleges have already reached out." Carlos looked at him. "I don't want to be famous." Mr. Rosenthal smiled a little. "Fame fades, but the right help can last. How would you feel if we offered to cover your education? Full scholarship. Anywhere you want to go." Carlos stared. "MIT. If you get in," Mr. Rosenthal said, "we'll pay for everything. Tuition, housing, books. No strings attached. You earned that." Carlos's heart beat faster. He'd been dreaming of this for years, but never imagined it could really happen. Still, something held him back. "Why now?" he asked. "Why not before?" Mr. Rosenthal didn't get angry. He looked serious. "Because sometimes it takes something big for people to wake up. You made us realize we were looking past the people right in front of us." Carlos didn't speak for a long time. Carlos woke up early, and although the guest room was big, clean, and quiet, he didn't feel at home. He missed his small room back in the apartment and the noise of traffic outside. He knew his leg was getting better since the bandage had shrunk and he could walk a little with the crutch, but the doctor said it would still take a few weeks to fully heal. Maria, his mother, came in with breakfast, placing the tray on the table beside his bed, and as she sat down next to him, she said, "You should eat something. You need to keep up your strength." Carlos picked at the toast but didn't seem hungry. "They want to talk again," he said, looking down at the plate. Maria nodded. "About the scholarship?" "Yes," Carlos replied. "Mr. Rosenthal said they want to help with college, full payment." Maria looked at him, concern showing on her face. "So, what's wrong?" Carlos didn't answer immediately. He looked down at his food, then said, "I've been working hard for years, but no one noticed. Now, I get attacked by a dog, and suddenly everyone cares." Maria stayed silent for a moment as she thought, then she said, "Sometimes, people don't see what's right in front of them until something big happens, and while it's not fair, that doesn't mean the help they offer isn't real." Carlos looked at her for a moment and asked, "Do you think I should take it?" "You want to go to college, don't you?" she asked. "Yes," Carlos answered. "Then you should take it. You're not taking charity, you've earned this." That afternoon, Jasmine came to visit and brought 2 cans of soda with her, setting them on the table between them. "My parents want to talk to you and your mom again tonight," she said. Carlos nodded. "I know. They're serious about helping and my dad is already making calls," Jasmine continued. "They want to support your dream." I'm still thinking about it, Carlos replied. You should go, Jasmine said. Don't let this chance pass you by. They sat in silence for a few moments, then played a card game. Carlos couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this normal. That evening, Mr. Rosenthal asked them to meet in his office. Maria and Carlos went together, and when they entered the office, Mr. Rosenthal stood up to greet them. The room had a large desk, bookshelves, and a few chairs, and after they sat down, he began speaking. Thanks for coming, he said. We wanted to talk to you both about Carlos's future. Carlos and Maria stayed quiet as Mr. Rosenthal continued. We've spoken to a few people, and we're ready to offer Carlos a full scholarship to college, including tuition, housing, everything. The money will come directly from us, not the company. Carlos looked at him and asked, Why? Because you saved my daughter's life, Mr. Rosenthal answered. But more than that, you showed us the kind of person you are. You didn't hesitate to help. You didn't think about what might happen to you. And we want to make sure you have the chance to pursue your future. Carlos didn't respond immediately, and Mr. Rosenthal added, We're not asking for anything in return. There's no press, no interviews, nothing. We just want to help you. Maria nodded slowly and said, Thank you. That's a very generous offer. Carlos looked at his mom before turning back to Mr. Rosenthal. Can I think about it? Of course, Mr. Rosenthal said. Take all the time you need. After they left the office, Carlos and Maria walked back to the guest room. Maria looked at her son and said, This is your chance. You need to take it. Carlos nodded. I just want to make sure I'm doing it for the right reasons. That night, Carlos sat with the tablet they'd given him and began looking up colleges. He checked deadlines, programs, and costs, but when he saw MIT's requirements, he felt a bit overwhelmed. It was a school he'd always dreamed of going to, but it wasn't easy to get in. High grades, a strong essay, letters of recommendation, they were all necessary, and he wasn't sure if he was ready. But as he sat there, he began typing his college application essay. He didn't try to make it sound perfect, he just wrote the truth. I grew up in a small apartment with my mom, who works as a housekeeper. I studied hard because I wanted a better life. One day, I saw someone in danger and I helped. I didn't do it for any reward, I did it because it was the right thing. I want to study engineering because I want to build things that solve problems and help people. Maria read the essay, and when she finished, she nodded. That's you. That's your story. The next day, Carlos received help from one of Mr. Rosenthal's assistants to gather the documents he needed for the application. They helped him request his transcripts, prepare his resume, and edit the essay. It was a lot of work, but Carlos focused on what needed to be done. Meanwhile, reporters were still outside the estate. Some people on the internet praised Carlos for his actions, while others said the video was fake, but Carlos didn't care about the opinions. He was focused on the future. One afternoon, Carlos went to the backyard. His leg was still sore, but he walked slowly without the crutch. He stood near the tree where Jasmine had climbed, and although the ground was clean now, he still remembered how afraid he felt that day. Joe, the old groundskeeper, passed by and noticed him. Good to see you up and about, Joe said. Thanks, Carlos replied. You did well that day, Joe said. Not everyone would have reacted the way you did. Carlos smiled. I didn't think. I just acted. Joe gave a small chuckle. Sometimes that's all you need to do. Later that night, the Rosenthals had a small dinner with family and close friends, and Carlos was invited. He wore a clean shirt and pants, and although he felt out of place, he tried to enjoy the meal. Maria sat beside him, and they ate quietly. Mr. Rosenthal stood up and raised a glass. I want to thank Carlos, he said. He saved our daughter, but he also reminded us that character and effort matter more than wealth or status. We're proud to support his future. Everyone clapped, and Carlos stood up to thank them. "Thank you," he said. "I didn't expect any of this. I just did what I thought was right. I've been working hard for a long time, and now I'm grateful for this opportunity." After dinner, Jasmine handed Carlos an envelope. It was from MIT. He opened it and read the first line. When he finished reading, he looked up at his mom and said, "I got in." Maria gasped and Jasmine smiled. "You're going to MIT," she said. Carlos felt a sense of relief. It wasn't because everything was perfect, but because he finally had a clear path forward. He looked at his mom, who had worked so hard to raise him, and he knew this was only the beginning. Carlos wasn't a hero. He was just a student who had worked hard, and now he was ready for what came next. He woke up early the next morning, just like he had been doing for weeks. His leg was still healing, but the pain was almost gone now. The stitches were removed, and he could walk without the crutch, though he still had to be careful. He felt stronger, but there was something else, too. There was a sense of excitement in the air, a feeling that everything was starting to change. Maria had already left for work. She had her early shift, and Carlos knew she would be gone for most of the day. He decided to go for a walk around the estate to clear his mind. The weather was cool, and the morning sun made the grass look bright green. He passed by the backyard, where he had spent so much time recovering, and thought about everything that had happened in the past few weeks. It seemed like everything had changed so fast. A month ago, he was just a regular teenager, working part-time and helping his mom clean houses. He had dreams of going to college, but he didn't know how to make them come true. Now, he had an opportunity that most people could only dream of. He was going to MIT, and he didn't have to worry about paying for it. His future was set, but he knew he still had a lot of hard work ahead. Carlos sat on the bench in the garden and took out his phone. He had received a message from Jasmine the night before. She had asked if he wanted to meet up later, and he smiled as he read the message again. It was a simple text, but it reminded him that things were starting to feel normal again. He wasn't just the housekeeper's son anymore. He was Carlos, the student who had a chance to make something of himself. He typed a quick reply to Jasmine, "Sure, I'm free later. Let's hang out." As he put his phone away, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned around and saw Mr. Rosenthal walking toward him, carrying a coffee cup in his hand. "Morning, Carlos," Mr. Rosenthal said with a smile. "How are you feeling today?" "I'm doing better," Carlos answered. "I can walk around without the crutch now." "That's good to hear," Mr. Rosenthal said, sitting down beside him. "I wanted to talk to you for a minute. I've been thinking a lot about what happened and everything that's come since then." Carlos wasn't sure what to say, so he stayed quiet and let Mr. Rosenthal continue. "You know," Mr. Rosenthal said, "I've been in business for a long time. I've seen a lot of people who want to make a difference in the world. But not everyone has the guts to actually do something when the moment comes. You've proven that you have what it takes to make a real impact. That's why we offered you the scholarship, not just because you saved my daughter, but because we believe in you." Carlos nodded, feeling a little overwhelmed. He hadn't expected such strong words from Mr. Rosenthal. "I just wanted to make sure you know," Mr. Rosenthal continued, "that the offer is real. We're not doing this for any reason other than to help you. I want you to take full advantage of this opportunity. You don't have to worry about money or anything like that. Just focus on your studies and do your best." Carlos felt a lump in his throat. He didn't know how to respond, but he knew Mr. Rosenthal was offering him more than just a scholarship. He was offering him a chance at a better life, a chance to escape the struggles he had faced for so long. "Thank you," Carlos said quietly. "I won't let you down." "I know you won't," Mr. Rosenthal said. "You've already shown me that you're capable of more than most people could ever imagine. Keep that in mind as you move forward." Later that afternoon, Carlos met Jasmine in the park. It was a small, quiet place near the Rosenthal estate, with a few benches and a small pond. Jasmine was sitting on a bench, waiting for him, and she waved when she saw him approach. "Hey, Carlos," she said, smiling. "How's it going?" "I'm good," Carlos replied. "Just thinking." "I get that," Jasmine said, laughing. "There's a lot going on right now, huh?" Carlos sat down next to her. "Yeah, a lot has changed in just a few weeks. It's hard to believe." Jasmine looked at him. "I know you're still trying to figure everything out, but I just want you to know that I believe in you. I know you're going to do great things." Carlos smiled. "Thanks. I don't really know what's next, but I know I have a lot of work to do." "That's the spirit," Jasmine said. "You'll figure it out. Just take it one step at a time." They sat there for a while, just talking about life and the future. It was nice to have someone to talk to who didn't treat him like a charity case. Jasmine was his friend, and she didn't expect anything from him. They both understood what it was like to have a dream and work hard to make it happen. As the evening started to fall, Carlos walked back to the guest house, feeling more at peace than he had in a long time. When he got inside, Maria was already home. She was sitting at the kitchen table, going through some bills, but when she saw him, she smiled. "How was your day?" she asked. "Good," Carlos said. "I was just thinking about everything. There's a lot to do, but I think I'm ready." Maria looked at him, proud. "I'm glad to hear that. You've worked hard for this, and now you have the chance to make your dreams come true." Carlos nodded. "I know. I'll do my best. I won't waste this chance." Later that night, after dinner, Carlos went to his room and pulled out his application for MIT. He had a lot of work to do, but it felt different now. He wasn't just doing it for his mom or for the people who had helped him. He was doing it for himself, for his future. He sat down at the desk, opened his laptop, and started typing. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was ready. He had a scholarship, a chance to go to college, and a future that was finally within his reach. The road ahead wouldn't always be smooth. There would be challenges and there would be hard days. But for the first time in his life, Carlos felt like he was on the right path. He wasn't just the housekeeper's son anymore. He was a student with a future, and he was ready to make the most of it. This story reminds us that sometimes doing the right thing leads to something greater. If you found Carlos's story inspiring, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs a little hope today. And tell us in the comments, what would you have done in his shoes? Thanks for watching, and see you in the next story.